Howdy, y'all, and welcome to episode 10 of the Barnyard Banter podcast, where boots meet microphones and agriculture takes center stage.
We're your hosts, Peyton Roberts
and Riley Rinke. We're members of the Axel FFA chapter, and we're on a mission to bring the ag industry to life. One story, one laugh, and one barnyard tale at a time.
Each episode, we'll be chatting with farmers, ranchers, ag teachers, FFA members, and industry experts out there making a difference in the world of agriculture.
Whether you're hauling hay, feeding calves, planting crops, or simply just curious of where your food comes from, this podcast is for you.
So sit back, grab a sweet tea, or hop on the tractor as we dive into the wild, wonderful, and sometimes downright muddy world of agriculture. Welcome to Barnyard Banter.
First off, we'd like to thank our amazing guests for joining us today as we explore the cattle industry and women in agriculture. Peyton, I think you know what time it is. It's trivia time. What state is ranked number 1 in the U.S. for beef production?
Obviously, Riley, it's our home state, Texas.
So why don't you introduce our guest today?
Of course. Today we are pleased to have Brittany Pharr with us to talk about all things cattle, rodeo, and women in ranching. Ms. Pharr runs Pharr Cattle Company alongside her husband, Doug Pharr, and kids, Presley and Maddox. They run a stocker cattle operation in Mount Calm, Texas, with a focus on raising quality beef. The Pharrs have also stayed heavily involved in the rodeo industry. Ms. Pharr, can you tell us a little more about yourself and tell us about your role at Pharr Cattle Company?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Brittany. And me and my husband own and operate Pharr Cattle Company that's in Mount Calm, Texas. So at Pharr Cattle Company, it really depends on what day of the week it is as to what role I'm playing. It depends on if we're shipping cattle. I might be hauling cattle. I might be weighing cattle, things like that. There may be days, too, where I'm in the office inputting cattle into the computer program, medicine inventories, things like that. So one day I might be a day hand and the next day I might be the office manager. So it really just depends on what's going on around the ranch that day.
That makes sense. What inspired you to pursue a career in ranching and how did you get started?
When I was a little girl, my grandparents ran about 1,000 mama cows in South Texas. And they were partial owners in the Edna and Nixon auction ring. And so I remember growing up just being around, whenever all the cowboys were around and they were gathering all the cows, and then they brought in a chuck wagon and had lunch for everybody. And I guess that's where I originally fell in love with it, is, being around at such a small age. And then growing up, we rodeoed. And we had, a couple cattle then too. And then whenever me and my husband got together, I graduated college and then we had to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. And we went to work for a roofing company that the friends of ours owned. And we worked for them for about 4 years. And we knew that we wanted to be in the cattle industry. We knew that we wanted land. And we just had to find it at a reasonable price because land is extremely expensive. And so we worked in the roofing business for a while, and then we saved up enough money, and some of our friends knew that we were looking for some land, and they called us up one day, and they said, hey, we've got some friends of ours that want to sell their place over here in Waco, which we didn't know anybody in Waco, Texas, being originally from South Texas. And so we went and looked at it and decided that that was enough acreage that we needed. And that's where we started with land you could barely ride a horse through. And then a little bit after that, we bought one load of cattle. And so you have to start out small and this kind of blossom from there.
So what set the stocker operation apart from other types of cattle production and operations?
So the stocker operation, whenever a cow-calf guy brings their 400-pound calf off their cow to the auction barn, sells them. I used to not know anything about what happened after that. I just thought you took them to the sale barn and got your check, put it in the bank. And the stalker side is we buy the calf from the barn. It can weigh anywhere from 300 pounds to 800 pounds. And we get them in and we have to process them. And then we precondition them, make sure that if they're sick, they get over being sick or, they get straightened out. And then from there, we send them to the feed yard where they, feed them the rations and things until they weigh about 1,400 pounds. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, the cow-calf guy you raise them from birth up until 300 or 400 pounds and you sell them. And then the stalker person comes in and buys them from the ring. I used to never consider who bought the calf. I just wanted to put the money in the bank.
So what kind of cattle do you typically run and how do you manage grazing or feed?
So we run anything from 300, 400 pound calves all the way up to 800. It really just depends on which weight makes money at the time, and anything from a straight Angus calf to a crossbred. And once again, it just what's the market doing? How much does that calf cost at the time? What are they paying for it on the board? Things like that. Just really determines what you're running and how big they are and how small they are. Our feeding, it's called supplemental feeding. We have all of our places broke up into about 40 or 50 acre tracts, and it all has grass on it when we're not in a drought. And so all the cattle get the grass daily, and then they also get a feed ration every morning. So even if we are in a drought or something like that, then we still can feed them as long as you have water.
So I know you mentioned processing the calves. So what all is included in that process?
Well, so I always say that whenever you take your calf to the auction ring, it's the same thing as you taking your 4-year-old to kindergarten for the first time. They're exposed to all of the strep and all the things. Well, it's the same thing for a calf. Once you get them from the auction ring, you then run them through the chute and you'll have to give them all their wormers. You give them antibiotics for all the exposure that they already had, respiratory stuff. And then we dehorn them as well. Considering that we own them in the feed yard too, their horns can only be a certain length or they can't run through the processing system. And so you have to go ahead and dehorn them because if not, when they're in the yard, their horns will be too long and they'll rail them. They won't butcher them, I guess you would say. And so that's kind of the processing of them when you get them in, just giving them all the medicine and dehorning them and ear tagging them and branding them and things like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I thought that was an interesting comparison with the kindergartner. I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So more on the being a woman in the ag industry side. As a woman in ranching, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
So this is kind of a hard question because for me, I would say the challenge is wearing all the different hats. If you're shipping cattle that morning, then you wake up at 6 a.m. and you're out there in the pasture, hot and sweaty, gathering cattle. And then at 7 o'clock, you got to go in the house and wake your kids up so you can get them ready for school, take them to school, and then come back. And you're going back out there shipping cattle again. So I think that just wearing all the different hats throughout the day and making sure that it all gets done. Because it's definitely not 8 to 5 job, It might be 11 o'clock at night, and if you haven't put the medicine inventory in that was used that day, you still have to do it. So just the challenge of trying to get everything done. And then also, I think that women, a lot of times in the industry, are more of a supportive role in the ownership of the cattle business. Men typically are in charge and that kind of thing, and which the wives are too, but it's more of in a support capacity. Making sure that you get everything done, making sure that everything is into the computer program and everything the way that it should be. You might not be titled as the ranch manager, but you're kind of the ranch manager. So
have you had any strong female mentors, or have you become one to others throughout your process, growing up or now with the Pharr Cattle Company?
I think that my grandmother, Edna LaFour, she ran the cow-calf operation in South Texas, and her husband passed away probably 20 years before she did, and she continued to run that entire operation by herself. Of course, she had people that, she paid to come in and help. But I used to sit around and I would watch her and think, man, that woman can get some stuff done. I mean, I remember one time that they had these solar panels where they would take these solar panels and these water pumps, and they would have to go pump the cattle water in the drought. And just watching her load all this stuff up in the truck and go from place to place, just getting it all done and running that many head of cattle, I would say that was a significant time where it was like, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. And just because a lot of people think the cattle industry is all men, I mean, anybody can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to. So I think she was a pretty significant person.
Yeah. What is the biggest lesson in the cattle business, or what is the biggest lesson the cattle business has taught you?
I think it's taught me patience. The cattle markets are wild, especially now. A year ago, they were $2 or $3 less per calf than they are now. And I think just learning to not panic and make rash decisions, and just being patient in the market itself, and trying to, just one foot in front of the other. If the market goes crazy and you panic, then, you make bad decisions. And so I think you really just have to be patient and not react to the way that the markets are so volatile right now.
So were you involved in FFA or 4-H growing up? And if so, how did that shape your path? So what all events did you do and everything like that?
So I did 4-H when I was really young. And we had 4-H meetings, and I think I was like vice president one year, treasurer one year. And I think that in itself, starting 4-H at a young age and being a part of the officers, you have to get up in front of everybody. You have to give your treasury reports and things like that. I think that that's really good for you going forward in life, and you being confident in yourself, and showing animals. I showed lambs for a little while. You've got to get out there in front of a arena full of stands and people, and I think that really helps too. With your confidence and with the showing, you've got to run the numbers. I paid this much for an animal, and I have to pay this much in feed and things like that. And that parlays into the cattle market as well. A lot of times I think that ranchers will let a bag of feed slip through here, or a needle slip through there, or something like that. You have to be very detailed with, your inventory management and stuff. And then as I got older, I did livestock judging, and I did that in 4-H, and I shot rifle in 4-H. Yeah, South Texas, they had it was like an archery competition, but it was rifle competition.
Yeah,
I've
never heard of that before.
I know. Whenever we moved up here, I was like, do people even do that around here anymore? No, I haven't found it hardly anywhere.
I know one girl in Corsicana that does it, but I don't know where she does it at.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, there was probably 20 kids, and it was like 22s, and they had peep sights on them. And that was interesting as well, because you had to go through all the gun safety and everything, before you could actually go into the range. So that was pretty cool. Experience that I wouldn't have gotten, outside of 4-H. until I was older, and my dad would teach me how to shoot a gun, of course. And then did livestock judging up through high school. And I think the livestock judging was huge. You know, just learning about the different aspects of the calf and like just being able to look at an animal and determine if it's going to finish better than, you know, the one standing beside it. I think livestock judging was really good also.
So we're going into a bit of rodeo questions. So how did your rodeo career start?
Let's see. My stepdad, he was a calf roper, and just growing up, always being on the ranch, and then he roped calves, and it was just something that he did it, so we decided we wanted to do it too. My younger brother, he started roping whenever he was like 10 or 11, I guess. And then we convinced my parents to start actually entering us in the rodeos. And then it was just like it all happened over and over and over again every weekend.
So what drew you to breakaway roping, and how has your journey evolved?
What was it?
What drew you to breakaway roping, and how has your journey evolved since then?
I got you. So I think that I wanted to rope. I knew that. But for the guys, or for the men, they did the tie-down roping. And I didn't want to get off the horse and flank the calf and tie it. So I was like, I'll enter me in the breakaway for sure. And then, you know, it just continues. You do it in high school, and then you can go to college and rope there as well. And so, you know, you want to get a scholarship. You can get scholarships for rodeo. And then after you get out of college, you can make money doing it. So you just continue on, you know, as you get older and older. And then you have kids, and then you don't really get to do it much anymore.
So can you walk us through an ideal run for you?
A run?
Yes.
Like roping a calf?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you get a draw. They draw you a calf. So before the rodeo, you know, you can go look at your calf's ear tag number and see which one it is. And then a lot of times that calf's been run at a rodeo prior to you. So you can look and see who had it, and you can call them and be like, hey, what did this calf do last time you ran it? So then you would know what the start is, meaning when you nod your head, you have to give the calf a head start, because if not, you'll break the barrier, get a 10-second penalty. So if the person that ran it before you says that it ran really hard, or it didn't leave, meaning you would have to wait longer on it to come out so you wouldn't break the barrier. So you could find out things like that. And then when you rope the calf, the rope is tied to your saddle horn with a piece of string. And when you rope the calf, it breaks away and the time stops. So it's pretty fun.
So how can you train both yourself and your horse for speed and precision for these races?
First thing you really need to have is a well-bred horse. We've learned throughout the years that there's different breeds that are more built for speed and more that are built for cow, you might say. And so if you have one that's cow-bred, then it takes a couple years. You got to take them slow, you know, just tracking an animal around the arena. And then whenever they've got that figured out on what to do and what not to do, then you can put a little bit more pressure on them and put them in the box. Normally when you put them in the box is whenever they get very jittery or can't stand still or try to leave too early, things like that. And that's a process too. You got to start out roping a slow calf coming out, because you want them to learn how to go out flat-footed and not leaping and things like that. And then you put a faster calf in there, and you just progress on and on. So it's a long process, but if you take your time and you do it slow, then you typically will come out with a pretty nice animal.
Gotcha. So I know you talked a lot about going to different rodeos like every single weekend and all that process. So what do you think like your favorite rodeo that you've been to is?
I'd have to say that here recently, I guess it was last year, we went to Cheyenne, to the Cheyenne Frontier Days, and my husband Doug roped in the steer tripping, and that was really cool. Like, that's one of the daddy of them all.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to go there, and it's the start, like when they let the calf or the steer out of the chute, it's not a button and the chute opens really fast. It's like this hand push where they open the gate really slow, and then you have to let the calf out like 20 feet before they even pull the barrier. And the arena is like probably 2 football fields long. Like, it's huge. And so it's just, I really like that place because you have to have a horse that can score. They can't leave early, and they have to be paying attention to you. And then they have to be able to run literally as fast as they possibly can to catch up with them, and then still stop and do all of the things they need to do. So you really have to have a really good horse in order to, I feel like, perform well there. And so I always like to go there and watch the caliber of the horses that people ride.
Yeah, it seems really interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you manage driving to rodeos, not just for yourself, but for your family now?
You drive all night. No, it's, you got that's another part of it. Like, you have to leave. Sometimes you have to leave early in the day. Sometimes you have to get out of school early, and you might not finish until 2 or 3 in the morning. And you just then have to drive all the way home. And then you still have to be able to wake up the next morning and go to work. So it takes practice. I'll say that. After you haven't done it a while and then you start going to the youth rodeos and stuff again, you have to get practiced at driving all night and being able to function on coffee and little sleep.
So what is your favorite rodeo event to watch?
Used to, I would say the tie down roping, but since my husband started steer tripping, it's something that I had never really watched that much before. And I used to think that a calf horse had to be the most talented horse at the rodeo, but the steer tripping horses, to be able to run that hard, then go left and stop whenever the guy's down there tying the steer, it takes a lot of talent. A calf horse, whenever they stop, if they're still trying to come at you a little bit, then you can like turn and look at them, and their reaction is just to go backwards. But a steer tripping horse is going forward the whole time. So you have to be able to get their attention and them listen to you without them being able to see you. So I would say now that a steer tripping horse is probably one that I would pick.
So can you explain a little bit of what steer tripping is for the people who don't know?
So steer tripping actually kind of originated like back. It's kind of how roping and rodeo and everything kind of started, because steer tripping is what you do whenever you have a 400-pound yearling in the pasture that's sick and you have to doctor it. You've got to rope the yearling. Then you've got to figure out how to get it down and tie it so that you can give it, antibiotics and stuff. And so what they do is they rope the steer like a header would rope a steer, and then they go left just like they do in the team roping. But when they go left, the rope's on the other side of the steer, so it kind of trips them over. And then whenever they trip, the horse is still going left, and the roper gets off and comes and ties their feet up before they can stand up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are your goals for the future of Pharr Cattle Company?
I would say that some goals is to run more cattle. You always want to grow and get bigger. I would like to also diversify within the industry. I'd like to, broaden the different roles and the jobs that are there. And and try to give back to the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's been a lot of people along the way that have just given tidbits of information here and there. And I'd like to kind of do the same.
Yeah, I like that goal. So what legacy do you hope to leave?
I would say just, you know, I want to leave something behind that can sustain a couple of generations, you know, not just my kids, not just theirs, but theirs as well after that. And hopefully, you know, help out people that are trying to get in the industry along the way.
So it is now time for your Barnyard Banter Ag Report. Here's your quick look at the Texas beef cattle industry as we head into the end of 2025. After 3 years of drought-driven decline, Texas cattle numbers are finally seeing a slight rebound. As of January, the state had around 12.2 million head, up 2% from last year. Beef cow numbers and feeder calf supply also ticked up modestly. Despite that, tight supplies continue to drive strong market prices. Cows in the 400 to 500 pound range are bringing nearly $4 a pound across the southern plains. Feedlot inventories are down, and national beef production is expected to drop about 4% this year. Experts expect continued high prices, steady export demand, and ongoing challenges like drought and feed costs to shape the outlook. Stay tuned, we'll keep you updated as the market unfolds.
All right, Miss Pharr, we have some quick fire questions like a this or that. Coffee or tea?
Oh, tea for sure.
Horses or cattle?
Horses.
Ford or Chevy?
Definitely Ford.
PRCA or ranch rodeos?
PRCA.
All right. Peyton, looking ahead, how can our listeners get involved or even suggest topics they want to hear?
If you want to get involved with our podcast, you can follow us and view our podcast on the Spotify and YouTube pages. Or if you want to suggest topics or potential guests that you would like to see, you can DM us on our Instagram page, barnyard.banter.podcast, linked below.
Ms. Pharr, what advice would you give to young women who are interested in ranching or livestock production?
I would say that to contact the local USDA or FSA office, because they offer a lot of different programs that help women get involved. They offer programs that help you put a down payment on land. There's a couple different programs that are like that the FSA and stuff are really trying to push to try to get more women involved in ranching.
That's really good advice. So how can our listeners contact you if they have questions or want to know more?
Any social media. You can send me a message or anything like that, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
We are excited about our upcoming episodes coming out on the first and third Mondays of every month.
Next on our podcast is a dynamic duo that left legacy in Texas FFA.
Thank you so much for watching.
Peace, love, ag.